What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 38 of the Whatnauts Review Show, where each week we have a different story to talk about. Could be a comic, could be a movie, could be both, could be something else. We read it, we watch it, we do what we have to do. We come back here and talk about it. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined, as always, by Melissa Wilkinson. What up?
Hello, Kyle. How are you this morning?
Good. I am excited to be here. This
Oh,
is
good.
I didn't want to be here at all. Fuck this show. No, this is I mentioned it's episode 38, but it is the final episode of the review show for 2018. We're going to be taking a couple weeks off for the holidays, and then we will return back in 2019, and it should be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Oh, you know what I forgot to do?
What?
I forgot to do the little social thing. So there you go. If you guys are watching this live on stream or on YouTube, you can see our name and our Twitter handles and stuff like that. And I have one more surprise for us coming down the road. Since Melissa doesn't really check Twitter, she might not have seen it yet.
What is it?
But I have the spoiler alert thing.
Oh, yeah.
All finished. So yeah. This episode is going to be pretty neat because you and I have not done an episode like this in the past, 8 months that we've been doing this show together? The last 38
really.
episodes. Or I guess last 35-ish since I did the first 3 by myself.
Oh, fun.
But when I first started this podcast 3 years ago, one of the things that me and my co-creator Paul would sometimes do is we would do a compare and contrast episode. We cover a lot of movies or comics or anime and manga that often have other adaptions of them, and so this week we ended up going with a compare and contrast episode for a comic and a TV show called Happy with an exclamation mark.
Yes.
It means it's extra happy.
Extra happy.
Yeah. The comic, actually, I should have this information up readily available. I know it's written by Grant Morrison. I don't know who the artist is off the top of my head. I should know that. It's the end of the year and we're still not prepared. Come on, internet. Move a little faster than that, please.
Yeah.
Dr. Google, help me out. Okay, why is my internet being slow? Anyways, it is both a comic book and a TV show. Season 1 is on Netflix right now, and the comic book is only 4 issues long. So you can get it for pretty cheap. If you can't find it at a local bookstore, Comixology.com has the book, and I'm sure you guys can find it there. What up to Grizz Kills? Thank you for stopping by in the chat. I am trying to figure out who the artist is on Happy. My internet is being slow. It's a comic book. Let's see. Happy comic book.
I read it on Comixology and I already turned my tablet off and left it in the other room.
That's what I should have done,
you.
is have it on the thing there. Okay, Happy Wikipedia. Someone out there probably already knows the answer to this. Let's see. Apparently there's also a Japanese sports manga of the same name.
Huh.
Weird. Oh, Derek Robertson.
Okay.
There we go. That's the information we needed. Cool. Yeah, so comic book by Grant Morrison and Derek Robertson, and the TV show was on Sci-Fi, the Sci-Fi channel, which I guess I didn't realize it was on that one until it popped up on the screen. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it seems tone-wise very different than what I've seen on Sci-Fi Channel in the past.
Yes.
So it was surprising, but good move by them. This
Yeah,
is an
very much
interesting
so.
addition to their arsenal of programming.
It's so let's dive in a little bit to the synopsis first, then we can do our general thoughts, and then we'll move on to spoilers and stuff like that. Oh, and there you go. Melissa's head is now small. It is fantastic. And it's back to normal. I still can't find anything online of why it does that. So
Friend's head is too small. WebMD.
Friend's head just got small and then big, really big. So the synopsis, if you've not read Happy or if you've not watched it, it is about an ex-cop who's kind of now hopped up on drugs and alcohol, and he's now a hitman.
Yes.
So he's hitting on some hard times for sure. He has a heart attack and wakes up to see a tiny blue unicorn that can fly, and it's just the happiest go lucky like cartoon looking character that is saying, hey, you need to go save Haley. And he's just like, what the fuck is happening? And so, yeah, he ends up having to go save this little girl named Haley, who was kidnapped by a guy in a Santa suit. So this is kind of Christmas related. For those of you listening to this as a podcast on free feeds, this is the Sunday right before Christmas. So it was only appropriate that we did our Christmas themed stuff at the end of the year, and this was, it's like let's
do the right time to do it.
Christmas, but just completely ridiculous. Yeah. So funny story, I mentioned this to another one of my friends, and she was like, oh, that sounds really cute. There's the unicorn, and they're saving the little girl and Santa. I was like, no. This is not that.
Not cute.
Not at all. Melissa, what is this more like? It's like, how would you describe this to someone else?
This is dark. It's madcap. It's very... I think the word twisted gets thrown around a lot, but this time it really applies. Like, everything is seedy. Everything is weird, but like, Happy is always happy. Happy is like he's grounding you.
He is the one cute part. Of course.
He's the one cute part of the entire show, so it keeps it from just feeling like a sea of depravity.
For the most part, yeah.
It's got real heart to it.
It does, which I think is really surprising considering how absurd this is, how ridiculous and dark and violent this thing is. So it's definitely not a family friendly show to watch at all, or to read. But I had a lot of fun watching this.
Yeah, it is fun.
I don't think it's all that great, if that makes sense, but I enjoyed it a lot. I think if you're looking for something different to watch during the holidays, that is maybe a little irreverent, or if you're an adult and you appreciate some more absurd, violent shows that are just completely out of line, this might be up your alley. It stars Christopher Maloney in the TV show. I didn't know anyone else off the top of my head.
There's Patton
Oswalt, who voices
Happy.
And there
was the henchman guy, Smoothie. He was a Dharma guy on Lost.
That's what he was from. I was like, I know him from somewhere.
Yep.
I've seen him.
Dharma Phil.
So
I don't remember what generation of Dharma he was from, but he was in there in one of those beige pantsuits.
Yeah, he was in like season 4 and 5, and I guess 6. Yeah, yeah, you said Dharma Phil was his name? Phil?
Yeah, he was Phil.
Wasn't he was Sawyer's like helper in this
I
security stuff, or
think
like one of the
so.
scientists that didn't like
Yeah.
Sawyer and Miles and all of them. Just like, you guys are
Mhm.
weird. Something's up here. Um,
Yep,
yeah.
so
Okay. So
we knew him.
there was a few people, but I don't know that actor's name.
No.
Um, but
He's just
shout
a
out to
guy
him.
who's
Shout out to
big.
Dharma Phil.
Thanks, Dharma Phil.
Thanks, Dharma Phil. Yeah. So, general thoughts. We mentioned we had a lot of fun with this. What were you expecting? What were you thinking? What what
I
was going through your mind as you watched this?
what I was I think what I was expecting was something more like what the comic is like. The comic is a lot more of like a gritty, dark, noir-ish, like hard detective story with a pretty sparkly blue unicorn in it.
Yeah.
And the TV show kind of elevates the weirdness all across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was expecting more just like a conventional detective story with a layer of like Grant Morrison weirdness over it, of course, and this little unicorn. And I got from the TV show, at least, which I think we might be talking more about the TV show just because there's more of it. Like it's a whole 8 hours versus like this four
Mm-hmm.
issue comic book that you could read in like 75 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all over the place. I liked what the TV show did. I liked all the different threads that it brought together.
This
I
is
liked a
one of
lot of the
the few
supporting
things that
story.
I think the TV show is better than the book.
Yes.
I almost felt like the comic book was more of a pitch of just like, hey,
Yes.
here's my idea. Let's develop this for TV.
Yeah. It feels like a proof of concept. It feels like a pilot or something like
Yeah.
that.
Cool. Well, that being said, that's kind of what the show is about, how it feels, stuff like that, to give you guys a general impression of what it is in case you haven't seen it yet and want to go check it out.
Mhm.
It's on Netflix right
Yeah.
now, and it's fairly new to Netflix, too. I guess at the
Mhm.
time of recording this, it's only been on there for like a week and a half or 2 weeks.
Oh,
Something?
wow.
Yeah. Because I started seeing advertisements for it at the time I was like, maybe I'll do that one. Okay, yeah, let's do
Yeah.
Happy. Let's pitch Happy. So that is that. I think for housekeeping, only stuff that I have, we are going to be recording a 3-year anniversary retrospective episode, which should be coming out on the free feeds, I think at the start of January, though.
Okay.
We're recording it like tonight and tomorrow-ish. It might be like a 2-part thing that I stitched together. We'll see. I got to message Jessica last night, so her and I might do something tonight, if nothing else. And then we can stitch that together. But that's going to be a lot of fun. It's kind of a celebration of all things the Whatnauts and everything we've done this past year, and we get to hang out and have some fun and talk and all that sorts of stuff. So it should be good. But be on the lookout for that. That will be coming out on both of our podcast feeds, the review show as well as the Captain's Log. So be looking for that on both of them. No matter which one you follow, you still get it. Cool. That being said, let's get into our spoiler alert.
Yes.
Damn, I just had our spoiler alert thing pop up. That is brand new. I just made that this past week, and it
So crafty.
it slides in. Melissa is feeling left out because she can't see it. She's watching me on Skype
Yeah.
right now, but
I'll see it later.
Yeah, I'll play it once more for everyone out there because I really like it. I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna make it. I'm just gonna do it because I was like, I'll make it over the holidays maybe and stuff. And then one night I was just like, you know what? Now is the time. Now is the time for me to make that. So here it is once more. Bam. Spoiler alert.
Mhm.
Sweet. Let's dive in. Comic book versus TV show. Grant Morrison wrote the comic, but he also did a lot of the development for TV, or at least that's the credit they gave him.
Yeah, I could feel him on there.
Yeah, there is an appropriate amount of
There's just like a
weird.
Morrison fog seeping over the whole thing.
The one thing I would say about this show that is a little bit different for Grant Morrison, this is, at least from what I've read of his stuff is very cerebral, if that's the right word. Like, it's more of a mind fuck than just sense. Like, whoa, I'm on LSD. It's more of a, like, him playing with the meaning of things or metaphors and stuff like that in a really, really complex way that you have to, like, dig into a lot to completely understand. And this just felt more like, let's just make something that's absurd. Like, there's no real hidden meaning behind all of this stuff, or at least not one that I could figure out.
No, I don't think so. I think we read All-Star Superman over the summer, and other than that, I just know Morrison, like, by reputation. But the vibe I got from All-Star Superman is that there's a lot of things just taken as given, like, oh, Superman did that once. These have always been here. These have always been true. And they're like the most absurd things just dropped in, like, no, and that's perfectly normal. And this show did have some of that, like when he goes to the all Santa stripper club. It's like, they just have those.
I think that strip club was more just, that's the one that all of the, like, the like seasonal shopping mall Santas go to after work. It's not just like, we're a Santa strip club.
I think you see the sign in the background at some point, and I don't remember what it said, but it looked like it was like some Christmas pun, like "Welcome to the Jingle Ball Club," Jingle Bell Club, something like that. I don't know. It seemed like maybe they. Seems like maybe they leaned into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this show had a lot of just like.
Well, the
it's
opening,
not just weird.
The opening scene in the show, I think, sets the tone for the show as compared to the comic book. So you had an interesting story that you mentioned to me, that you were reading the comic out in public and being like, "Oh God, nobody look at me."
I had planned to start reading the comic while I went for an oil change, and I wanted to go to one oil change place where, like, I can sit in a waiting room, and I know that place is always empty, and I can just, like, huddle in the corner.
Yeah.
But instead, I had to go to a different place where you stay in your car, and they work, like, on your car, like, around you. I'm like, they can definitely see in here. They can see what I'm reading, but I already blocked out this time. Like, I have to keep to a schedule. This is my reading time. I'm just going to go ahead with reading about this, blowjob that ends in a murder.
Yeah. Well, so it was interesting because the first 2 pages of the comic book have the C word everywhere. This guy's a cunt. That guy's a cunt. This, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of expect some of that language from Grant Morrison. But so that kind of set the tone for just, like, how that was the seedy underbelly of wherever they are, New York or something, I think. Like, that is, like, it's gonna be gross looking people. They're gonna be cussing a lot. They're gonna be smoking, and there's gonna be blowjobs and drugs and that stuff. But the TV show opens up a lot differently.
Yeah.
And that also, I felt, set the tone, but like we've been talking about, is a very different tone, I feel like.
Yes.
Whereas the comic is a lot more serious. This book is just more ridiculous.
Yeah, and like something, like a point I was trying to make earlier is that in the comic book, the one weird thing is happy. Yeah. In the TV show, there's weird stuff on that level all over the place.
Yeah.
And the comic's just like one intrusion, one sparkly cartoon intrusion into otherwise a conventional detective story. And the TV show is not at all a conventional detective story.
Not at all. But yeah, so like it opens up with Chris Maloney, his character Nick Sachs, and he's in this like disgusting bar bathroom. He looks like he's hopped out of his mind on something, and he's like trying to sober up. And then, yeah, it looks like he shoots himself in the head. And right when he does, that's when the like Jingle Bells song comes on. His head is just squirting blood, like the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And there's these like scantily clad women dancing in all these weird colors, and he's sitting there dabbing and all that stuff. It's ridiculous. Like it is so insanely over the top, and I wasn't expecting that.
No.
That I was sitting there expecting him to like walk out of the bar and just cuss up a storm. Like if he were to walk out of the bar and we saw those people at the start of the comic walking by, like that's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And instead it's just this, nope, we're on drugs now.
And another thing about the comic is that stylistically it's pretty straightforward. Like there's no, like the art's good, but there's nothing really unusual about it, whereas the show throws in all of these extra stylistic bits. Like in, I think it's episode 2 or 3, when Nick is coming to terms with the fact that Haley is his daughter, he's playing this daydream where he's on the Jerry Springer show, and Jerry is there convincing him. Yeah, Jerry's trying to convince him, no, you are the father. And like it turns into that whole cliche of what that show is, where the entire audience is like punching each other and fighting with chairs.
Yeah.
And it just keeps cutting to that daydream, while the rest of the story keeps going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I like a lot of the things that the show does just to show how absurd this is, or like these different ways to depict what's going on in people's minds, right? You have Happy, who's an imaginary friend, which I guess is Haley's imaginary friend, but it's also... So let me back up really fast. This one of the things that both the comic book and the show does, we mentioned it has a lot of heart. I think what it does that's really interesting is it takes a lot of like traditional like holiday themes and displays them in ways you wouldn't expect, right? There's storylines about growing up and becoming an adult. There's storylines about believing in magic and like, hey, not not everything is real there. There's stuff about family, like like it's all of that stuff, but just in this melting pot to make something that's not what these things to be. And I think that's really interesting to see.
I want to talk about Haley herself, because
Go for it.
I watched most of the show, and then I started the comic. Like I read like the first issue, and then I finished off the show, and the final thing I did was finish off like the last 3/4 of the comic book.
Gotcha.
And Haley's pretty much no one in the comic book. Like she's just a plot point. Like she's not a character. And I didn't realize until I had the absence of her that I realized what a strength she is for the TV show. Yeah, you follow her. Like you don't just learn about Haley through her parents and through Happy. Like you follow her. You follow what she's trying to do to get out of this kidnapping. And she's really strong, but also like not preposterously like too strong or too clever for being just like a normal 10-year-old girl. Like she's really capable. And she's really a
actress.
She's a delight to watch.
Her like disgusted face, which she has on most of the time, is just like like you're horrifying. You're an evil person. I am disgusted at you.
She's so great, and I really like what the show did in fleshing out all of the side characters. Like nobody's really just a plot point. And one of my favorite things that came up was the mobster's sister and her whole storyline, like her sons get murdered and she just wants like her son back. And it's surrounded by this, aura
The
of just like,
layer of ridiculous is they're
yeah,
also on a reality
yes, there's like
TV show.
she's like on some sort of like a Real Housewives sort of thing. And she's just this really spoiled, like bitchy woman, I guess you would have to say. Like she's just all like decadence and luxury and privilege, and she doesn't care about anybody else. And she's putting her emotions out there for the entertainment of others as this like celebrity building reality show, but it's genuine also. Like
Yeah.
she's not reacting for the camera. Like she is broken that like all of her sons are dead, and like the youngest one, like she brings him back from the grave. She wants him back so badly, and it's seedy, it's weird, and it's like really emotional. And those are like the three strands that the show
So
just braids together.
that was the one storyline that I felt like had the most obvious metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, where she's missing her sons because Nick Sachs killed them at the start of the show, and she wants them back, but she's also kind of grappling with this idea that maybe she didn't love them enough. Like maybe she was too obsessed with other things and just didn't pay attention, and that's why this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she's learning to make this pasta sauce, and she doesn't know how to make this pasta sauce. She doesn't know the right ingredients to make the pasta sauce the best it could be. And I think that's the most obvious metaphor of like, did I parent my children right? Did I put the right ingredients in? Oh, you are dropping things left and right here.
I dropped a pen.
How dare you? What a distraction. But yeah, so like she's learning how to make this pasta sauce. And another layer of absurd is she's learning from her mother, but her mother is almost this like this Romani kind of character. And she's like, no, you have to put in your own blood.
Yeah.
In this sauce, and this is while they're on the reality TV show, and she's just like dumping a vial of her blood in there, and everyone's like, oh my god, this is disgusting.
And like it's all part of the weird ritual that
but again
brings
to go
Mikey
with
back
that
to life.
Yeah, but to then go again with that metaphor, like to like I'm not a parent, so I don't know exactly, but you put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into your children to hopefully, make them functioning adults, right? Like she's learning to make this sauce, and I think it's teaching her a lot of what she did wrong as a parent. So that is, I think, the one thing to me that stood out of just like, hey, here's a metaphor. Here's some just completely absurd Grant Morrison-like metaphor for what that is. Whereas I think a lot of the other storylines weren't. I mean, there is metaphor. The comic is a little more clear on what the Santa guy wants, at least out of the kids, and why he's turning them into toys. Yeah,
like the reason for the kidnapping is pretty different between the comic book and the show. So in the show, the culprit is the Santa guy. And he's not like, whereas in the TV show, he's like a henchman. He's just one link in the chain. In the comic, it's like very bad Santa. I think like the TV show episode description called him. Yeah. So very bad Santa kidnaps the kids and ties them up. And he is going to,
from what I understood, he was delivering them to Blue so that they could do this like child pornography auction thing. I think they were like selling them off to the highest.
Yeah, and it was like going to be like a live streamed like web event thing.
Yeah.
And in the TV show, like the kids go to Santa, and then Santa has to like take them to Smoothie, and then Smoothie boxes like he puts them in the weird school, and then he boxes them up like they are toys, and then they're gonna go to like Sunny Shine's weird sex palace, and then I guess get sent off to new families.
Yeah, again, getting sent off to a new family, to the highest bidder, but at least it shied away a little bit from the like, hey, this is a child pornography raid.
Yeah, it was like, as seedy as the show is, there was less time spent on that aspect of it, which was good. I think that was a nice choice they made. Like, well, we got to make something more palatable in this series, so there's less child porn in this one. Hooray!
Yeah. But there's the idea of growing up, and as you grow up, you start to like lose your faith in things, right? You don't believe in Santa, you don't believe in your imaginary friends, and so the magic kind of starts to disappear. And in the comic, the very bad Santa didn't want them to grow up. Like, he wanted them to stay kids forever so that they could continue to have that magic, which they don't really talk about much in the show. But that metaphor is still kind of there, right? Like, he's turning them into these like these like child action figure doll things, with, you know, makeup and outfits and stuff like that, and that's how he's packaging them, right? And sending them off. So he's still not wanting them to grow up or change. He wants them to be in this like permanent action figure state. But then on the flip side of that is where Nick is, and he is too old. He's too old for this shit. And he has to like learn to be a kid again and kind of believe and follow this imaginary friend. So I mean, the metaphor is still there. I don't feel like that was as strong because of the kind of blender that this show put everything through.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to say more on Haley herself?
I don't know. I think she was a really nice protagonist in her own right, and not just like a plot device that other people are working around. Yeah. And I think that was a really nice choice. I liked all the scenes with all the kids. Like, when Smoothie gives everybody like a big slice of cake, but he skips over the fat kid, and Haley's like too upset to eat her cake, and she's just like staring off. yeah, and the camera's on her, and you just see this hand like reach in from the other side of the frame and take the cake off her desk and like pull the cake back. I liked all those kids.
At the end, I thought it was hilarious when they're all like standing next to their boxes about to get packaged up, and he's kind of reflecting on the stuff they've done this past week. He's like, well, you all have learned a lot. This has been an interesting week. There's been some failures, and he looks at the one kid, and then he keeps moving. He's like, there's been some successes, and he looks at the next kid, and the next kid smiles as if like he's happy to go off to his next family. Like, what? Yeah. And then he goes to the Asian kid, and he's like, and you get top marks because you're Asian. I was like, oh god, this is terrible.
I think that whole scenario had my favorite bit of just non-plot related, just set dressing weirdness going on, which is when all the kids are in the classroom and Smoothie comes in and he plays a pre-recorded tape of him talking to the students, but he doesn't talk to him himself. He's just sitting there eating an entire corn cob.
Welcome to the Pearl Station. In this station, you will...
he's giving them
Thanks,
the
Dharma Phil.
Like, he's giving them the orientation speech from like a pre-recorded tape of himself while he just sits there and eats corn and stares at them.
Yeah, and he eats it fast too. He would take like 6 big bites out of like the thing before he chewed and swallowed.
Like, that's the thing I was talking about. Like, there's all this weird stuff going on and it's just glossed over. Like, oh, yeah, it's time for him to eat his corn. Like, it's not a thing. Keep moving. Just
So
don't look.
this is the thing with Grant Morrison. I mentioned he has more of the like mind fuck type of thing. He also does a lot of references to other things. So I'm kind of wondering if this is a little bit of an homage to another book. Have you heard of, or I guess also seen the TV show Preacher?
No, I
Have you seen
haven't
that one
yet.
or read that one? It's
That's
also a comic book.
It's on my list because it's one of my older brother's favorites.
It is an incredible comic, but it is the same kind of ridiculous, balls to the wall, completely irreverent.
Good.
Just there's things in there that like you should not show that to anyone. But like I'm wondering if it's kind of an homage to that, because even in the comic book, Derek Robertson's artwork was a lot like the artwork in Preacher. It's this very gritty, kind of grotesque. It's not super stylized, but the line work is a little bit more thick, and it just has this kind of visceral, disgusting feeling to it.
Yeah, everything feels kind of like gritty and grimy.
Yeah. Not in like a dark and gritty kind of way
but
that
yeah,
most Hollywood
got, like,
movie, it's not
it.
that. But yeah, it's more just like in the best way possible. It is like walking down the street in New York and just seeing all the garbage like laid out in the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Like if you can distill that into line work in art, like that is what I feel like that style of artwork is like invoking. It's just this idea that people are disgusting. They do disgusting things. They're terrible people, you know, like and that like both Preacher and this kind of play with that idea that people are gross. They do gross things. Like they're also just completely ridiculous. We're gonna completely turn this idea of holidays and family and all that stuff on its head, and it's gonna be disgusting and completely balls to the wall. Whereas Preacher does the same thing for like religious stuff. So yeah, it might be an interesting homage, or at least like an influence or something there. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe. What did you think of the art in the comic book?
I liked it. The comic book, because it is easier to draw than it is to rig up in live action. Most of the comic books takes place while it is snowing, and they kind of lose that in the show just because of production reasons. But the way the snow is illustrated in the comic book is so gorgeous. Just all these big, fat, like snow blobs flying through the air. Oh, that's what I took away from the art the most, was just how pretty
snow blobs
was. Yeah, and like I think setting it in the snowstorm is so interesting because snow is this beautiful, pure, like cleansing image, just like a blanket of white over the town. And like when it snows, like the whole world gets like quiet and serene. But then snow is also like the biggest problem. And then, you know, like 2 days later, it's going to be this terrible, like wet, slushy mess you're going to have to slog through.
Brownish black mess. That's just.
So I feel like putting all the snow in there, like kind of melds all the stuff together. Like it's both happy and Nick.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I felt like the TV show was a lot brighter.
Yeah, I liked that about it a lot.
Because we have more time in the TV show, then the TV show was developed a lot more. We get a lot more scenes in the daytime, and just, you know, it's not all like at night. I guess they didn't really do. One of the big differences is that in the comic book there was a time limit because a certain event their like
Yeah.
web event was happening.
Yeah.
This one didn't necessarily have a specific event. It was just like when they're done, they're done.
Yeah, it doesn't have a very big like ticking clock on it, but I didn't feel like I missed it because the show is like
Yeah.
paced so well. Like it's real fast paced. So I never thought like, hey, speed up or anything like that. Like I didn't miss that impetus of a ticking clock in the show.
Yeah, I think in the comic, Nick had, I want to say it was like 56 hours or like 48 hours.
And he slept for most of them.
Yeah, he slept for like half of it, and he wakes up. He's like, "Oh, good, you're awake. We have 24 hours left. Let's go." But yeah, so I think that's why most of it took place at night, and with this, yeah, they have more time. It's been a couple days, if not a week ish, right? Because I don't think you can report a child missing until it's been like 24 hours, I think.
Yeah.
If I mean, I don't know. I don't have kids. I've never reported a kid missing. But yeah, like I there was in an odd way less of a sense of urgency, and I felt like that helped the show out a little bit more of like, hey, we get to actually do some detective work, whereas I think the comic was just like, she went that way, all right, cool, we'll go that way, oh, there she is, oh, we're done.
Yeah, the show's, it can be frenetic, but it's not too frenetic, and I feel like if we had that time clock on us, then it would feel like too rushed.
So we've mentioned that we liked that the show was developed more and that we got to spend more time with these characters and stuff like that. Did you at all ever feel like there were too many episodes? Because a lot of TV shows nowadays, they'll have their story, but then they'll have like 2 or 3 extra episodes that just, like, it's like, okay, we didn't need to know all of that. We could have cut it out and completely been fine. Did you feel that at all with this show?
I think there was a bit before you really figured out what the criminal plan of the whole thing was, where you thought like Santa was the end game, like there was nobody above Santa. It seemed like they were closing in on Santa pretty quick, and I'm like, really, like halfway through, what are you gonna do with the rest of it? And then I'm like, oh, okay, there's more stuff above Santa. So briefly I thought, why is there so much of this? But then the show like explained that to me. Don't worry, we've got more.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it says this is season 1. I don't know if there's a season 2 coming. I didn't look that up. But I have a feeling there's going to be more of the show. I mean, it kind of left the show open-ended for that. Like, hey, there's going to be more adventure. They still haven't caught Blue, who's, I feel like, the one orchestrating this all, right?
No, Blue is in jail at the end of season 1.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And Sunny Shines is, like, Meredith told him, like, I could tear you down, but we don't see her do it. So that's
he's
sort
the
of
one
that
that's
is
still out there, yeah.
Yeah. So there's kind of this question mark on it, like, is the reckoning still coming for him?
Yeah, because this is one of the things why, as much as I enjoyed watching the show, I don't know if I truly liked it, if that makes sense. I think there's a lot of really fascinating side characters. I don't feel like we needed all of it, or at least to that extent. Like, as much as we talked about the like mob wife who's on this reality TV show, like, we don't really need to know about her character to advance the story.
Yeah,
like, it's all extra. Or their son that wants to be a hitman and is like Sid from Toy Story and like doing all of that stuff, which he has some hilarious moments, but it, like, that whole plot line about him, and when Happy is in his care because he's kind of been kidnapped, and there's this whole like,
Mhm.
well, this is where all the imaginary friends go. Like, that was just like, why is this even here?
Yeah, they're like the criminal side of everything does have a lot of moving parts to it. Like there's the whole thing about Ladik, and you go to Ladik's poker night and he's still out there, and then there's all the
Well,
people
that
going
I
after Nick.
understand, because Nick
Yeah, that one is
needed
from
to
the
get
comic book.
money,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
that's how
there's
he
like
gets money.
and like there's all the people that are after Nick because they found out he has that password, and like the
Yeah, there's a
criminal
whole thing about the
guys.
password too, which was
Yeah.
not addressed in the comic or the TV show, really. So that's
Yeah.
also something that they might be looking for.
hmm Yeah, and then there was the whole stuff about like Meredith and like her
Oh,
mom, and it turns out like her dad, like he was like under the thumb of the mob. Like there's a lot to it, and I feel like it could be kind of thinned out a little bit
yeah. Well,
more.
Meredith is kind of under control of the mob.
Yeah.
She looks like she's gonna be a character that, like, okay, you're gonna end up doing the right thing, but we
hmm
know at the same time you're also gonna be an obstacle from time to time.
Yeah.
Because she had an affair with Nick, and that's why the mom was like, we have pictures. But the thing I wanted to talk about next was more about the password and
Uh-huh.
all of this stuff. The comic book doesn't really address it. They mention it at
No.
the start, and Nick does what he does in both the comic and the show, and he kills the guy that knows the password. It's
hmm
the youngest son, and the
hmm
son doesn't get to share the password, so no one else knows it.
Yeah.
But then the TV show throws a wrench into all of that, where the son kind of comes back from the dead.
Yeah.
I don't know what was happening there. I think I blinked and he was just alive once, and I was like, wait,
That
how
was
he's
that was the
dead? But
pasta
he's
sauce. It wasn't
yeah,
pasta sauce for the sake of pasta sauce. The pasta sauce was a magical, like old Italian witch
spell.
ritual to
Yeah,
bring a boy back from the dead.
yeah, and it so he does this thing at the end of the show where he goes and visits his father in jail.
Mm-hmm. It's his
And
uncle.
his uncle. I don't. They're all
Yeah.
Italian to me. Uh, but he goes and he visits him in jail, and he does this weird like breathing thing, and then the father has this like conniption where he like has a stroke, and he looks like he's having this like demonic
Yeah.
possession thing, and then he stops, and a lot of the flashes that appear on screen are the same ones that the son had when he was away on his trip. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of like transfer of consciousness
Yes.
or
Yeah.
something going on there.
Okay. So what Blue thought was that his nephew had the key to like grandpa's storehouse. Like he had the password to like, this is all my intel, like these are all of my riches.
Yeah.
Like it's the key to all of his treasures. But instead, what it looks like that grandpa gave Mikey was like, you are carrying my dying soul to implant it into my next of kin.
The ghost
Like
of
you,
Christmas past.
yeah, which is interesting. And I did like that there's more kind of magic realism, supernatural stuff happening in this world outside of the imaginary friends. Like they're not like in the comic book, like it's just them and everything else is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like that the TV show is kind of weirder all around. Like, yes, you can bring a guy back from the dead. Yes, you can transfer a soul from one person to another. And I like that there's more stuff like that, but it's almost a little too strong. Like it seems like it could be big enough to be an entire separate thing from the rest of the story.
Yeah. Which is that's also kind of one of the things. I think it lessened the importance of Happy himself, of just you can see these other imaginary friends now. Like, I like the idea that there are more out there. Obviously, there's a million children out there
Yeah.
who have imaginary friends, but the idea of that we as an audience get to see them, that
Mhm.
was a little strange, because there's that whole idea of like, oh, you have to believe in them to
Mhm.
see them, and it's like, well, okay, I mean, Happy is useful, but now the frog guy, like, why is he here? And is he? Wait, I don't believe in him. Like, what? You know,
So you didn't like that you were being introduced to characters you should not be able to see because you're just being introduced to them. Like, I don't know who that is. Why can I look at them?
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that they're not important, but I guess to get back to the like magical realism side of things, I like that more stuff was in there. That
Yeah.
one thing in particular about us being able to see more of the imaginary friends out there, I thought like lessened the impact of Happy. That he is this absurd cartoonish thing that should not be in there, right? Like, we
Mhm.
only saw this one soul being transferred, right?
Yeah.
It's not a whole
Okay.
bunch of different there's only
Okay.
that one. So when it happens, it's like, oh shit, what,
Yeah.
what just happened? When we see Happy in the comic book, we're like, oh, what in the world? Why is there a flying blue unicorn here? Like, what in the? But once we start to see more of them, then it's just like, oh yeah, that's just a flying purple frog. Who cares? That's just what happens, right? Like, it lessens its what the fuck is happening kind of thing.
But I think it adds to Happy as a character, as like a more traditional character and not like
Sure.
a fantasy like kind of oddity. Like he's really in this crisis of faith like about other people and about himself.
Which is
And
an interesting thing,
yeah.
because his entire existence is someone else. Well, maybe not in this show, but for like imaginary friends in general, just like
Mhm.
out in the real world or in the comics, since he's the only one, his
Mhm.
entire existence is based upon Haley's imagination. So he's
Yeah.
not a character outside of what she's already imagined. Whereas
Mhm.
this, it makes it kind of sound like imaginary friends exist and they're assigned to people, kind of. There's
Like a
almost this
Fairly
like,
Odd Parents kind of situation.
yeah, there's like this magical fairyland thing, and it, because Nick asks him like, what are you gonna do now? And he is he ends up being Nick's imaginary friend, but he alludes to this idea that like, well, there's always someone out there who's going to need
Okay.
me.
You know what this is? It's the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends theorem. Do you remember the premise of that
Theorem.
show?
Well,
Where
according to the Foster's theorem of
an
you
imaginary friend is created by a child to be like their match. Like, you are
yes,
what I need from you. And then when I don't need you anymore, that's not to say somebody else couldn't also
use them.
need you. Like, you're designed for me, but
Yeah,
you can work for others and you can learn and grow and adapt to them. Like, Happy learned to adapt to Nick. He learned to also be, a killer who says curse words.
yeah.
Like he gets real dark, and then at the end, it's like kind of left an effect on him where he's like he describes something as shithouse cray cray to Nick, whereas he would not have done that before he like
By the end of the
left
TV
Haley
show, he's
behind.
snorted a lot of of cocaine. He's
Yes.
killed a man. He's like, this
And
is a
the
happy
final
unicorn.
barrier is that he says curse words.
Yeah, yeah.
I liked that twist a lot, and I don't know if like I just woke up this morning and my hormones were turned up to 10, but the scene where Happy says goodbye to Haley is so
It's
cute.
sad.
Yes. And Patton Oswalt does such a good vocal performance in this show.
Yeah.
I think all the Christopher Maloney is so perfectly cast in this show. Like we watched Wet Hot American Summer earlier this year.
Yeah.
And this is like his Wet Hot American Summer character and like the years he spent on like Law and Order, Special Victims Unit. And you just merge those together and like
And you get this.
yeah, he's so well cast and like Patton Oswalt's a really good match for Happy. And I remembered something I heard in a like a behind the scenes featurette on the DVD for Pixar's Ratatouille, which he
Okay.
stars in. And they were talking about how they cast him because having learned from like his stand up and his appearances and other things that he's got this passion in him when he speaks. Like he can be such an advocate for something. Like he's so passionate and so lively when he's talking about something he's into that he like wins you over to his side. So Pixar was like, okay, this rat is like the one rat in the entire rat community that's like passionate about food and he's trying to win over all the other rats and like that's what that guy does. We need him to like
Mm-hmm.
be this chef rat.
Yeah.
And I could see like kind of that same thing in Happy. Like he's trying to convince people. Like he's got this idea in his head and he's
Mm-hmm.
just so into it and he needs you to be as into it as he is to get this thing to work.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to believe
Mm-hmm.
to make it work. Let's see. Was there anything else I really wanted to talk about with this one? Do you have any other stuff? Because I feel like it's a short enough TV show that you can knock it out in a weekend.
Yeah.
It's a short enough comic book that you could knock it out in like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough to each of them that it's like, okay, that was good. Like
Yeah. And I think I don't know, like there's so much going on and it's so weird that it might be like for short as it is, it might be something that sticks with you for a while.
Yeah.
Because it's just so striking. Like
Yeah.
this is I don't know if I'll like rewatch this often, but like next Christmas I will be thinking about this show.
Should I rewatch this? Is there a season 2? I wonder. So what was your? There are so many just ridiculous, absurd, and funny moments. What was one of your like? What was your like? All like this thing was my favorite moment of the entire show. Could be a funny moment. Could be well acted moment. Whatever.
I want to talk real briefly about the Santa in the TV show when he throws his voice, like when he's putting on that voice.
Creepy as hell.
That's so weird. Like, because it's not like okay, so Haley's in this crate. Like when she gets kidnapped and she's put in this crate, and she can like kind of hear noises around her, and she thinks there's other kids in other crates.
Which
so she starts whispering back. Yeah. And so she
extent.
starts whispering to see if anybody else is there, and this voice whispers back to her. And I could tell, like, okay, that's not another child, but maybe it's like, you know, like an adult actor, like voicing a child in like a more cartoony fashion, you know. But then you see that it is the Santa, and like he just makes his voice sound like that. And
it's enough where you don't really think like it's a strange voice, but you don't really think about it yet. That
like, you're not suspicious.
I wonder if
about
that's an
it.
adult, if that's the Santa.
Yeah,
talking back to her because he's some old like Alan Moore looking dude, right? And
like I wasn't suspicious of it. I did not think, oh, this is an adult character. I thought this is just an adult actor sounding like a child.
Yeah.
No, it is the Santa who can make his voice sound like that, and there's such a disconnect. Like that has to be a different actor's voice they are putting over him, and it's so weird. And that's another like magic realism thing. Like that's superhuman. You can't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like, Billy West is in this show playing the three-headed dog, like imaginary friend, and he's a maestro of the voice, but you can still tell all of those are Billy West. So like if not even Billy West can sound like a completely different person, how can the Santa? He's got to be superhuman. So I like that. It's just like more magic realism, like on the horror side instead of on like the whimsical or like supernatural side.
Yeah, the show has a couple really creepy moments like that,
Yeah.
or just like straight up very like that is horrifying, like in the like crime way, like the thing that makes Nick
Yeah. Oh,
kind of go off
yeah.
his rocker
Oof.
is disgusting.
Oh,
Um, and they do a terrible transition away from that. But you understand immediately, like that is, yeah. I think I would be in Nick's spot if I had to deal with that
yeah.
too. Like
It's
that's
rough.
disgusting. I think for me one of my favorite moments though, we're like all the just like the moments where you're watching this, and as much as you know it is gonna be crazy, it's just even that much more crazy. It's just like,
Yeah.
how is it like the first one I mentioned was like the opening scene where
Mm-hmm.
like Nick has the hallucination that he shoots himself, and that's when the opening credits start, and he's sitting there with um, he's dabbing and stuff like that. Like that was just completely ridiculous, and I'm sitting there like, what the fuck am I watching?
Mm-hmm.
And then when Nick's ex-wife goes in, she's in the tower, and she discovers the like bug like
Oh,
sex club
yeah.
thing, and they're all in this like white
Oh,
white
yeah.
room. They're all in black latex. There's this like dubstep playing, and they're all like licking each other and doing this stuff, and she's just like,
And then the like
what?
and then the kids characters, like the Wishies, come in. They're like the Teletubbies or like the Yo Gabba Gabba, like
Kind of
fun costume
characters,
kids
yeah.
characters
They
that
rip
like
them
the
open, and there's this like, I'm gonna say it's like a penis looking thing,
yeah,
and
there's just like weird alien dicks under there.
yeah, and it's just like,
And
what the
like
fuck is
again, like
happening?
and again, are they just like that, or is that like a costume effect? Like, okay, it's part of our play that we put this weird penis head on you, or no, is that like a creature?
Yeah,
Again, like
who
it's
knows?
so weird, like unsettling and ambiguous, like this whole world.
But it has the like this like 30-second music video kind of look
Yeah.
to it, where it's just, yeah, and it's just doing all of these weird camera angles and cuts, and it's going to the beat of the music, and it's just like, she's just like, your reaction is exactly hers, where she's just like,
Yeah.
what the fuck
What
is
did I get
this?
myself into? Yep.
But like there's a couple of those moments, um yeah, and it's just like that, I can't believe this is on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so surprised this was on Sci-Fi Channel. But also, I'm glad it was, not just for like, oh, look, Sci-Fi Channel, you're growing up. Look at this very mature content you have. But I think the weirdness that permeates the entire show, like, it would not have that if this was on FX or something like that. I think because it is a Sci-Fi Channel production, they're like, weird that up a little bit.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's good, it
so
works.
let's talk about the Sci-Fi Channel really briefly here.
Mhm.
Have you seen the show Three Monkeys?
I have not.
It's a fantastic show. Should absolutely watch it. It's a time travel sci-fi show.
Oh.
But it is. There was also the movie Three Monkeys with Brad
Oh, is this
Pitt and
12
stuff like that.
Monkeys?
Yes, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Kyle, you reduced
Look.
75% of their numbers.
Look, okay, there's time travel. I can just go back and fix it, and everything will be fine. No, but yeah, you're right. I at least I was bold enough to just be like, "Have you seen Three Monkeys?" But so what is your perception of the Sci-Fi Channel? Because you mentioned it at the start, where you're like, "This is not what I think of when I think
Yeah.
of this sci-fi. What do you think of?
They can do real schlocky stuff and also real good, strong stuff like Battlestar Galactica. But this is, I think, the most comedic thing they've ever done. And the most else, like you said earlier, just trippy thing
Yeah.
they've ever done. And it's very bold. Wow.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way. Like when I was growing up, the Sci-Fi Channel was all of the B movies. Very, very, very low budget horror films and sci-fi films. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman would be, replaying on there and stuff. Movies like Sharknado would be on there and stuff. I guess that would be a more modern one, but I felt like they just kind of went away into obscurity for a while.
Yeah.
And then within recent years, they've kind of come back, and they've had some actually really good shows. 12 Monkeys, not 3 Monkeys, but 12 Monkeys is one of them. Where watching it, I'm like, this doesn't, like, it's actually a good story. It's a good plot. They have some good effects. Like that was also like a hallmark of the Sci-Fi Channel. Like the CGI effects were always just awful because they had no budget. But it's like they actually sunk some money into this stuff. And I think shows like that and some of the ones that they've been doing recently have kind of paid off. Whereas like Happy is, I would say, a lot less sci-fi. But is the production value on it was fantastic.
It looks great. Like the CGI animation on all the imaginary friends is wonderful.
Yeah, not what I would expect from the Sci-Fi Channel at all. And so I'm really loving that they're kind of making this comeback. And I think I mentioned Preacher before. I think they're hoping to kind of put themselves in the same ball game. They're not there yet as like FX or Showtime or AMC, right? Because AMC has The Walking Dead. It has Preacher, right? Like the Sci-Fi Channel now has a show that directly competes with Preacher because it's that same type of absurdist, what the fuck am I watching type of thing. And I kind of like that they're kind of going for the throat there. Though there is, Sci-Fi does have a zombie show that at least the first season was really bad. It's Z Nation is, I believe, what it's called. There's comic books of the same thing. I don't know if the show has gotten better in recent years, but I went to go watch like the first couple episodes, and I was like, oh god, this is awful. That is more what I expect of Sci-Fi, the Sci-Fi Channel. But yeah, like I'm wanting them to continue down this route. Like I don't care if they do less shows. I just want like do more like cherry picked. Like we're gonna sink a little more money into this.
So much stuff that you can just syndicate and show reruns on. Like Sci-Fi Channel was where I first saw all of X-Files. Like, just keep playing X-Files. People always love X-Files.
Exactly. They still want to believe. So
yeah, and so here they are today, still showing a show about believing.
Belief. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I guess we forgot to do, if you liked this, what else would you recommend? Obviously, I said Preacher, but do you have anything that comes to mind?
What this reminded me of was, to call back to another thing we covered on the show, it kind of reminded me of American Gods, in that it's all these like big, larger than life characters and like magic realism and like a mismatched pair of people and just going from place to place, just trying to figure out what is even happening.
American Gods is more on the not absurd side.
Yeah, American
But
Gods, it's weird, but
it has its
it is more like,
moments
yeah,
where
it's
they
a lot
get
more like a supernatural drama than
yeah.
this is, which
Um,
is like a magic realism crime comedy, I guess.
yeah, something like that. American Gods is a good one. I would also say Fargo,
Oh,
whether it's the movie or the TV show. Fargo is a lot darker, I feel like, or well, I guess I can't really say a lot darker, but its absurd moments I think are more in the like dark comedy style rather than just like I'm on all kinds of shrooms and
yeah,
LSD type
yeah.
of stuff. And like Fargo has that weird crime thing going on there. I think if you liked this, you might like Fargo as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I think those would be some good things to check out.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Yeah.
final thoughts on Happy?
Oh,
If you
liked
had to
it.
recommend one or the other, the comic or the TV show, what one would you recommend to people?
I'd recommend the TV show. I feel like it's
Same.
got it's funnier, it's weirder, it's creepier, it's like a lot more emotional. You get
There's
to
more
know
meat.
all the characters. Yes. You get to know all the characters a lot more. And like there's great characters in this.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Enjoy it with your family this holiday season.
We're not. Watching some of those scenes with your mom might be a little strange.
Holiday season. The family can be whoever you want it to be, Kyle.
Exactly. Yes. So that being said, even though this is the last episode of 2018, we are still trucking along with making pitches for 2019. So what we're gonna do now, Melissa is about to make the usual 3 pitches. It's her turn to do that stuff. But we won't be recording that episode until early January. So we have a little bit more time to cover this stuff. So you might be pitching things that are a little bit longer than what we normally do on a week-to-week basis.
I tried to take advantage of this longer time frame. Like we've got 3 weeks instead of 1 week.
Yeah.
So pitch number 1, we've done movies before. We've done a movie and its sequel. In the past, before I was doing this, and it was you and Paul, you would cover trilogies. But if we have 3 weeks, we can cover an entire film franchise.
Oh, boy.
Beyond a trilogy. So pitch number 1 are the... Hold on, give me 1 second. I got to make sure I'm counting this right. Okay, there's 6. Pitch number 1 is the 6 films in the Mission Impossible series.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I've never seen any of these. Another like theme to my pitches is that it's all for the new year, brand new stuff. I've never read anything about these.
Crossing off the stuff that's on your list of shame.
Yeah. So pitch number 1. This is Mission
Impossible.
Starting with Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3, but the Roman numeral 3, but 2 is just the number 2, so that's weird. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and new this year, Fallout. I went to the movies a lot this year, and so I probably saw half an hour's worth of various trailers for Fallout, and I never got tired of them.
I've seen
every movie I went to, I was like, oh, cool, another Fallout trailer. I get to just watch Henry Cavill wear a mustache and punch
reload
people again.
his fists.
Yeah.
I've seen the first one of this a long time ago, and that was it. Then I was just like, all right,
yeah,
whatever.
I've never gotten to these, and this seemed like a good time to like knock out an entire franchise.
Cool, good stuff. At least you didn't say Land Before Time. Like, we're gonna watch all 28 Land Before Time films.
That would be an entire separate podcast.
That'd be terrible.
So that is pitch number 1. I don't have a synopsis, but you know what it is. We all know basically
it's a
what
mission
it is.
That's impossible. But obviously not, because he gets them done each time.
You fight a helicopter or something, I don't know. We get what it is. Pitch number 2. This is the one that I didn't know if you guys had already covered or not, because it
Okay.
seemed like something you would do, because it's a graphic novel. A big, hefty, award-winning, well-known graphic novel. Pitch number 2 is Blankets.
Blankets. I've had that on my list of things to potentially pitch, but I've never read it.
It's big and hefty. I saw it at the bookstore this week, and I'm like, that's so long. Let's try that for a pitch, because this seems like a good 3 weeks worth of reading.
Okay. Blankets.
This is described as, by Wikipedia, an autobiographical graphic novel by Craig Thompson, published in 2003. A coming-of-age autobiography. It tells the story of Thompson's early childhood in an evangelical Christian family, his first love, and his early adulthood. The book was widely acclaimed, with Time magazine ranking it its #1 in 2003 Best Comics list and #8 in its Best Comics of the Decade. I have heard this is sad. I was almost scared away from pitching it because it's so sad. But I thought I'd be brave and I'd give it a try.
Okay. Sounds good. That's pitch number 2. What do you got for pitch number 3?
Pitch number 3 is the #1 show I get yelled at for not having seen already, and that is The Good Place.
Okay.
Everybody's crazy about this show. I've not seen a second of it.
I haven't either.
So this is season 1 and 2. They're both on either Hulu or Netflix, one of those. And that's just a total of 25 half-hour episodes. So this one is a little bit on the shorter side, but I already put it on the list before I looked up how long it is. And I'm like, no, it's still staying. We could do this in a week, but I already wrote it down on my notepad. What am I going to do? Scratch it out now?
Okay. Those are all good options. I think, however, with a little bit of a break in between there, we might want to start the new year with a bang and go Mission Impossible.
Yes! Aha! Good. I'm glad. This was like my secret front runner. Like that one sounds the most fun. Like I'm sure Blankets is very good, but boy, I don't want to start 2019 off on a bummer.
Yeah, that's one of those, like, I've heard it's an award-winning graphic novel on the bigger side, so yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. Maybe we'll end up covering it sometime down the road somehow, some way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it might be nice to start the year off with some good old action.
Yeah, just action-packed times. I'm very excited about these because they're such a big thing, and I know the tropes. Like everybody's seen the parody of like dropping down from the ceiling on a wire and navigating a laser maze, but like I don't know any of the stuff around it. I have no clue. So this sounds like a very exciting new adventure.
Cool. Good stuff. I'm excited to dive in as well because I've only seen that one and it was years ago, so I don't remember anything. I'm sure I've seen bits and pieces of the other ones, so who knows? Who knows? I believe that is pretty much it. Like I said, be on the lookout for our 3-year anniversary retrospective. That will be coming to your podcast feeds in the start of January. So in a week or two, if you guys are listening to this as a podcast on the free feeds. That being said, Melissa, where can they find you? What are you working on? What are you doing?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. I've got news about all the various other podcasts I've been on this year and pictures of cookies I made.
Is your RPG podcast doing any like special holiday like one-off episode or something like that?
Okay. My campaigns, my ongoing campaigns didn't have time to fit one of those in, but I did just record a really fun one-shot unrelated adventure for this really cool game called Kringle Cross that the GM made up. And we are all different kids who are taken aboard like a Polar Express type of train, and we have to go save Santa. It's so fun. It's so goofy. It was really a joy to record.
I think it was the Giant Bomb Cast. That last year for their like holiday episodes while they were on vacation, they pre-recorded like a 2-part like RPG campaign. It's just like the most ridiculous thing. Like imagine like Die Hard with elves and like magical snakes and stuff, you know.
We've got magic snakes.
There you go. But yeah, so that was always fun to listen to. I don't know if they're gonna do it again this year or continue their story from last year. I don't know. We'll see. But that's why I asked, because I know you do some of those. And I was like, I wonder if they're doing anything special.
No, we did a one-shot, but the campaigns are just slowly chugging along like normal. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. If you guys want to find me on the internet and all the stuff that I'm going to be doing over the holiday break, you can find me at YoKyleSpringer on Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to be making my parents watch all of the Marvel movies in order.
I'm so excited for this. We could do an entire Captain's Log just on like reflections on the MCU alone.
Yeah. They've seen a lot of them, but some of the more recent ones they've missed. They live out in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming, and their movie theater only shows like 2 movies a week. And so they, like, sometimes a movie will have been out for a month and it only gets to them after that month. So I'm like, I'm gonna, because we normally like watch TV shows and stuff like that. I'm like, instead of us watching some kind of TV show, let's just watch all of the Marvel.
Oh, that sounds so fun.
And get you caught up on all of this. And I'm like, yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah.
That, and I'll have some video games that I'll be playing. I'm out there. So yeah, to keep up with the Whatnauts and everything that we are doing there, follow us on Twitter at the Whatnauts. If you like this show or any of our other podcasts, patreon.com/the Whatnauts. You can throw us a buck, and that will get you all of our episodes early. And in the new year, I guess one of the things we'll mention on the retrospective, we're going to have a little bit of a new release schedule. So you guys will be getting the episodes sooner to when we record them. So that'll be good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. That being said, Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas. Whatever else you guys celebrate, I hope you guys are having wonderful holidays.
Yeah. Season's greetings to all of you.
Exactly. Happy Kwanzaa, or I don't know what the right thing to say is there.
Hanukkah's already gone. I think it's about Kwanzaa times.
I don't know. I'm terrible at this stuff.
New Year for everybody. Happy New Year for everybody.
Yeah. Hope you guys have a happy New Year, and we will see you in 2019. Adios, guys.
Bye.